I'm actually going to have the guests introduce themselves quickly. And then we are going to get started straight into the questions. While they're introducing themselves, yeah, and then I'll share my screen, show you a couple of job openings that I saw over the last couple of days. And recruiters, feel free to jump in and put any links to chats of job positions that you think would interest this crowd. We'll start with Yanni. Why don't you introduce yourself? I think everyone knows where you work, but just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name's Yanni. I'm a recruitment manager here at Chainalysis, and currently focusing on our corporate functions and marketing recruitment. But throughout my time at Chainalysis, I've been able to see a lot of different teams grow, and very excited to talk a little bit more with you guys today about crypto roles in recruitment.
Awesome. Zach, brother.
Hi, everybody. My name is Zach Plotkin. I oversee compliance, legal, crypto, financial crimes, and privacy recruitment on temporary and permanent jobs for ICS Korn Ferry Company.
That's amazing. Now, Sam is having a little trouble beating the firewall to get into Zoom, so I'm hoping he's going to join us in a few seconds. And we also have Anna, who many of you know from LinkedIn, who's helping out today. Stephanie can't make it today, but Anna, tell us a little bit about yourself and throw in some links of some cool content that you're doing.
Hi, my name is Anna Stilianou. I see familiar names from people that we are connected and discussing on LinkedIn. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm putting out content on LinkedIn regarding with regard to anti-money laundering compliance, financial crime. The purpose is to educate people, but trust me, guys, if you try to do that, it's a very good, let's say, way to show to recruiters what you can do for them.
Awesome. And we're going to get into that deep here in the session. I'm just going to quickly share my screen, everyone, just on some career opportunities I pulled quickly. The first one being, so the first one I saw was Ava Labs. So I don't know if you guys know Ulta from Ava Labs. She's really cool, a lawyer there. They're looking for a compliance specialist. 5 years experience, which isn't that much, I don't think. Getting to work with one of the, I think, the biggest blockchain companies out there, next to like Polychain and those other blockchain service providers. AML required, experience required, obviously, but CAMS, which is, I think most people have already. Obviously, knowledge of FinCEN, et cetera, that you're going to need. Salary range doesn't look too bad. Maybe we'll ask the recruiters their thoughts about the salary range, but I don't think that's too bad for 5 years to work for an established crypto company. And you get to work with Ulta, and she's an amazing character. And if you want to work with Yanni and Chainalysis, they always have these cyber crimes investigators. Yanni, you can correct me, but this always seems a little bit more like the Department of Defense, like maybe former public sector trying to get into the private sector. But I do get a lot of those people messaging me on a regular basis. So it seems like this is still a cool opportunity for those that are looking to get into crypto compliance and do a little blockchain investigations. They would need the Chainalysis Reactor course, obviously, and they should have some appetite for traveling, which always seems like fun. Yanni, anything to add to a position like this?
No, that's perfect. Thanks.
Awesome. So Anna's going to throw those into the chat. If you guys want to see the links for those, definitely go check them out. If you're looking to apply to the Ava Labs one, definitely reach out to me. Ulta is really cool, and I can definitely try and get you high up on the list. If you want to apply to the Chainalysis one, well, you have Yanni, you can maybe send her a message. And it will include their LinkedIns on everyone on this sessions, but we are pretty much going to get directly started in on these questions. And it's a question pretty much for everybody, but I'd like to know, like, if you had to give a 1 minute synopsis, Yanni, where are we standing in this current crypto market? If you had to let people know in 1 minute what they can expect trying to get a job in crypto compliance or even just cryptocurrency.
Yeah, 1 minute, no pressure. But I think everybody's seen quite a bit of movement in the crypto industry most recently. And so every company, I think, is at the stage of really evaluating what is their next step and what roles do they need in order to make that next step. So when you're looking at roles, I think really honing in on what transferable skills you have, where you feel you can start with a company, but then also move forward with that company and hopefully grow within your career. So take taking that into consideration will also help with, finding those niche positions that you can start with and then move into maybe your ideal role after a year or so with the company.
Awesome. Zach, how about you? You see hundreds of, opportunities come up at one time. What do you see now? I think you mentioned in one of your posts, a little bit slower than normal, but you're starting to see maybe a little bit of pickup in the compliance area.
Yeah, so this year is a little different than other years in the sense that things have moved a little slower. Usually the way the hiring works, at least from my perspective, and I work mainly North America, is hiring usually starts mid to late January. And then, it's our busy season essentially till end of June. This year, it really didn't start until really February 1st, January 31st. Somebody turned on the sink faucet and jobs started to just kind of pour in, which is a little later than normal. So, the first week we got 15 jobs. The second week we got 22. This week we've gotten, it's Wednesday, we've gotten 11 this week. So jobs are starting to come in. I think specifically within the crypto market, there is quite a lot of jobs that are still out there. It may seem like it's a doom and gloom place sometimes, but there's still a lot of opportunities that are out there, and people still need to be compliant.
That's awesome. And like Yanni, I think Anna just had mentioned like some of the things that stood out for her. People trying to get jobs is creating content. As someone that gets a ton of inbound, how do people get your attention? There's a lot of people that lost their jobs. How do they get attention and differentiate themselves from others that are trying to reach out to you probably on the same day, same week? You're probably getting hundreds of inbound messages. What stands out for you? Is there a couple things that really stand out for you?
Yeah, so you're right. I think everybody as a recruiter lives on LinkedIn and gets lots of messages, and it's hard to sometimes sift through those and make sure you're really finding the best candidates for the role. But honestly, targeted messages that aren't templates, looking at exactly what role you're looking for, what experience is unique about your background that should set you apart from others. And similarly, making a personal connection, right? Stephen, you're great at this with the content that you put out there. But people who reach out to me and know my history with Chainalysis or know about, a similar university we went to or anything in the background, I think also makes you stand out. It just shows that you took that extra step to find out who I am as a person, as well as the company and role that you're looking for.
I mean, treat you as a person? That's unheard of for candidates looking for jobs. You have to treat and they get so mad when recruiters treat them like a number, and it's like they send these templated messages. Zach, how about you? Because I think people feel more comfortable around you. You admitted to your kind of nostalgia humor that you share on LinkedIn, which is probably why I like it so much because I'm old. It might go over the heads of some of the millennials, but how do people stand out to you when they approach you? Do you even respond to all the messages? Do you respond to a certain segment of messages? How do you kind of interact with people trying to stand out?
So first off, I'd say in the recruitment world, we don't say that you're old. We say the word seasoned. Seasoned sounds a lot better. You'd rather have, a seasoned steak than an old steak. It's the same thing, but sounds different. I would say normally there's only one type of individual I don't really communicate with, and it's someone who just reaches out on a blind message that just sends me a resume and says, what do you have for me? Ultimately, I'm a recruiter, but I'm also a person. I'm looking to build a rapport with somebody. If you want me to get you a job that you want, usually I want to find out a little bit more than just your background. I want to find out potentially who you are. I want to find out what you're looking for, what your career aspirations are, and kind of how we can kind of push you into the right company. Because there are people who are just financially driven. Those type of people might not be suited, say, toward the crypto industry or a startup, or they may be more suited toward larger institutions. If you're looking for a more high risk or a startup type institution, I don't know that just from being sent a resume. So I try and communicate with as many people as I can. If you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'm going to respond. I might not respond that second, but I'm going to respond, and I'll try and communicate with as many people as I can. But the big thing that I can attest to is who I am as a person. If I don't have anything, I'm going to tell you I don't have anything. If I think you need to change something, I'm going to tell you you need to change something, because I think there are only so many truths in this world. I don't really see the point to add a lot of fluff to it. I think, I don't really like to see the point to BS people per se.
Yeah, you came to the right place for that. We definitely do not hold back here. I think everyone's gotten used to that. We're brutally honest here because at the end of the day, we all want you to succeed. Sam, welcome to the chat, my brother. I'm going to ask you, What stands out for you? You create content. Obviously, a lot of people probably reach out to you for global jobs. What stands out to you? Someone reaches out to you. What's like, oh, I remember that person. I'm going to maybe try a little harder, or I'm going to keep them in mind for a position.
Yeah. First of all, I'm really sorry for being late. Basically, I'm in Heathrow, going to pick up a friend later, and I was trying to get access to this Regis, my private office, and for some reason I can't get in through. So I've found a place, which is all good. So what I think is kind of two layers, right? One is how you present yourself from a CV or LinkedIn point of view, and then the other side is when you're actually engaging with a recruiter, right? Something similar to what Zach mentioned is how you actually engage with a particular recruiter, right? So those are the two things. From a CV point of view, that you can do many things. And one of the things that I receive so many approaches mainly from candidates asking for if there's new opportunities. And frankly, I don't have the time to go through all of them. But if anything stands out, I will definitely click, right? For example, if a candidate send me a video, right, a recorded video saying this is so and so forth. And also, what as a candidate, what you really need to think about is how can you make my job easy as well, right? Because I have tons of candidates to talk to every single day. So
I think, Sam, you may have got a little bit cut off there. You're fine now, but you got cut off a little bit.
So yeah, the old approach of sending a CV or LinkedIn message doesn't always really work unless you are very, very niche, right? If you're really, really niche, that would work. Otherwise, I would say think of new innovative ways. Videos work even in business development, right? When I do business development, I try to send videos than send an email. So I find that's really important. And then also when you're actually talking to a recruiter, some of the candidates that I remember really well are those people that done their research. They know what they're really good at, and they really are able to really summarize, Sam, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and it's really click in my mind. I would say those are the things in a short
I love that. So treat recruiters like people. Do your research and then kind of do their job for you. So don't highlight all your skills, highlight those specific transferable skills and for specific jobs. That's amazing. Yanni, are people even interested in crypto? Like I see, even as a recruiter, people come to me, but it almost seems like they just want any job. They could care less whether it's in crypto, and it shows through the interview process. What are your thoughts? Are people really interested when they're coming to you into crypto, or is it more so they're just looking for any job? And how can they show their enthusiasm?
Yeah, so I hope they're interested in crypto. I think if you're looking at Chainalysis and similar companies, you have to have some sort of interest, right? By even looking at the job description, we're pretty different than your random B2B SaaS company. So yeah, I hope that people coming to talk to me are actually interested in the industry. We don't make it a requirement though, right? It's still a place where a lot of training needs to be had for new folks joining the space. We have our cryptocurrency fundamentals course. We have a lot of trainings and certifications that people can do that are deeply interested, but just haven't gotten the time or haven't been able to really dig into the industry just yet. So I don't speak to many people who aren't interested. I do speak to a lot of people who haven't had the opportunity to gain a depth of knowledge. And so hopefully by joining Chainalysis, they'll be able to do that in short order.
Yeah, you guys trade up, I feel, all your professionals on the CCFC and CRC, or at least make those courses available. Obviously, airdropped off those courses as well. But Zach, I'm interested. You see a lot of candidates. Is there, are your clients, are the companies that are hiring, are they looking for certifications? Are they looking, or are they looking to mold somebody maybe from just a traditional perspective and mold them into or teach them enough crypto for the job?
So more often than not, the candidates that I'm speaking to, I'd love to say that companies want to hire people to mold them, but usually if you're coming to a recruitment agency and you're paying a fee, you want to find someone who could step into the job immediately. So I would say the majority of clients that I'm working with are looking for people with specific experience. Certifications definitely can help, but also a big thing that I advise a lot of people, whether you're trying to get into the industry, whether you're in the industry, is my job as a recruiter and I'm just going to explain this so people know my point of view. My job as a recruiter is to sell people on a piece of paper. You know, I can't always verbally sell a person's background. So a question that I task a lot of people, whether they're in crypto, whether they're in any industry, is what on your resume, the piece of paper that I need to kind of put in front of people, tells me you're interested in a topic without you verbalizing. So say you work at a traditional financial institution, you want to get into crypto, what on your resume tells me you want to get into crypto? You know, it's a hard question to answer, but there are certain things. You know, we want to show an interest, whether it be a certification, whether it be an article, whether it be a networking event. What are you doing to show me that you have an interest or show me that you have a passion about something? You know, to probably answer your next question, what certifications are better than others? That depends on, you know, how high you hold the value of the certification. You know, whether it's a Chainalysis certification, whether it's a CAM certification, you know, it depends where you want to bring your career. So that's something that I usually talk to each individual person about and where they want to bring their career. That's another value in talking to a recruiter as opposed to just sending your information to them. But I think understanding your value and understanding how to sell yourself the correct way is something that's valuable there.
I think Zach, you brought up a good point. Each certification is different for each person. I hate that answering the questions of certifications. It all depends on what you really want out of your career. And, you know, if you're looking for a job, Chainalysis and ACAMs might show up on more of the job descriptions. But if you're looking to connect with a certain instructor, then taking certain in-person courses might be best. So I think everyone has different perspectives of that. Sam, I want to go to you. You are the global voice on this session. What are companies looking for out of candidates? So many people here want remote jobs, but it seems like they're focusing most of their attention on North American crypto companies. So it kind of seems like they're almost not focused on the global scene. Can you tell us a little bit about what organizations are coming to you and what they're looking for in their candidates globally?
Sure. So no, you're quite right. I think obviously there is a bigger market for crypto blockchain area in North America and the US as a whole. But what we are seeing is that there is a lot of demand coming in from the Middle East UAE region. In fact, we actually open our new office in UAE because I think this is going to be an area, it's going to be huge. And we were in a conference last year and I talked to, I don't know, about 300 people or so. And most people are really, most companies already have moved to UAE and Singapore, those being the two locations. And actually some people actually moved from the US, companies as well as individuals relocating there, right? So so that's the trend that we are seeing. And I think that's only gonna get bigger and bigger. So that's what I would say from a regional point of view. Did that answer the question? I think you asked something else as well, Stephen.
No, that's really, I want to know, like, where are the areas, where should people be focusing their attention on? I think that's what happens is everyone wants remote jobs, but they're looking for the Coinbases of the world to give them those opportunities, where they should probably start looking in other markets where, companies are going to. As you said, a lot of companies are going to Dubai, a lot of companies are going to the UAE. Before we go to the other panelists, Sam, you put out some recent great content on looking for your dream job during a crypto winter. Looking for your dream job is something I've preached day one when I started out my journey. But how can people even think about a dream job now? Mortgages due, car payments are coming up, kids need to be fed, and they just got surprised and there's nowhere else to go, right? Everyone's laying off people for the most part. So how can you think people can take actionable items to kind of suss out their dream job?
Sure. I think in this market, sometimes you just have to survive, right? Sometimes it might be not that easy to find a dream job. But what I always tell candidates is that you really need to think about what you can leverage right now and how you can leverage that, what you have to leverage and how you leverage that, right? So just to give an example, if you're in Web 2 and you want to get into Web 3, you need to think about, what are the key things that really differentiates you. I know this is I would say, many people talk about, always tell, what you're good at, but I think sometimes it's difficult to really put that into words or articulate that what you are really good at, and then selling that in like Zach said, piece of paper or whatever the format That's really important. So first of all, if you want to get a dream job, even in this market, I think you need to really understand, what you have and how you leverage that. That I think is really, really important.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I just wanted to actually kick it over to Zach, because Zach, are people even thinking, like, I know you probably get a lot inbound. Are people thinking about their dream jobs, or just people thinking about any jobs? Are they thinking when they reach out to you, or they kind of want you to kind of guide them towards what job that their skills would be fitting for?
I think people are definitely thinking about it, but my job is to be more transparent and realistic with people. I don't want to say bring people back down to earth, but I think that's a good way of saying it, is setting realistic expectations with people that, yes, you can get your dream job, but right now the majority of jobs are not remote. Yes, you can get your dream job, but it might not be the right time. Let's get you the job that will get you the job. Sometimes there are stepping stones, and sometimes it may take, instead of taking one step back to take two forward, you could take one step to the side to take two forward. But it's all about understanding the market and the best way to put your best foot forward.
I like that. Yanni, I want to ask you, because you had mentioned about exactly what Zach is saying, just getting your foot in the door. But, I think a lot of people, especially like, let's just say Chainalysis, they want to be an investigator, but they're applying for the training specialist job. And if you're looking for a training specialist at Chainalysis, you want somebody committed to like helping others and grow others. So those people that you can see what they're trying to do. Is that the approach they should be? Should they be upfront, honest, and say, hey, listen, I want to be an investigator, but I love, helping others learn? Like, what's the approach there? Because I don't want them to shoot themselves in the foot by applying to a training specialist when that's really not what they want to do.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an art versus a science, right? As a recruiter, I also don't want to hear that you're just applying to this so that you can get another job. That doesn't really solidify longevity in your current position or excitement that you're going to be really like hitting the ground running. So it will be, I think, deeper conversation, being open and honest and asking those open questions that give you an answer to, okay, so, how long do I have to be in this role before I can be considered for other positions? How do you cross-functionally train people at Chainalysis? What transferable skills does a trainer have that would leverage into an investigator role or, similar positions across the organization? So broader questions like that, I think as an individual can help you make sure that the step you're taking can get you where you want to be. But to be honest, I wouldn't be that blunt in an interview and say, well, I'm just applying to this so I can get to this other team.
and I just want to not step on, but add on to what Yanni's saying is, those are all phenomenal questions to find out where you can potentially go. I would not ask them as the first 2 to 3 questions in an interview.
Fair.
Those are questions that you want to establish a little further into the conversation, and make sure that, if you're going to ask questions related to, where can I go after this job, make sure they're a little further down the process before you get the first job.
And Zach, let's stay with you. I think one of the worst things I see as a recruiter is, the questions are terrible. People aren't asking great questions. They're really not, especially that's the last point of contact before the end of the interviews. Usually you get a chance to show your research, show your skills. What are people doing wrong in that process? What are some of the ways, and then give them some advice as what's a really great question to ask, or at least a style of question that they should be asking.
So I advise people the 2 things you should never ask, at least on the first interview. Never talk about money on the first interview, because it's just not a question that you need to be discussing. People want to see if they're actually interested in you in the conversation. And I wouldn't ask about, how many hours are we working? What are opportunities that could come from this? I'm really interested in getting my boss's job. I don't think those are types of comments or questions that you should be bringing up. I would ask questions more to show that you have done homework and you have a passion and an interest about what you're doing. I would bring up usually something related to current events that company is going through right now, to show that you've done some research. If I'm going to hire somebody, even into my own company, I want to show that they have an interest in my company, that they've even Googled it, that they know what is going on in the world related to my company. If we just acquired another company, it's good to know that. It's good to bring up that topic. How is this going to affect your group? Are you excited about it? Where do you see this going in the next 2 years and then the next 5 years? Because if you ask a question like that, 2 years, you could see what a person's immediate, vision would be right in front of you. 5 years, you get to see a little bit of an insight into their long-term vision within the group. And then you can transition into where things are going and what people are doing and where things are going along those lines.
You know, I think I laughed a little bit because you say those questions. I think some people laugh, but I think you give that advice because you've probably heard those questions a little bit more than you feel comfortable admitting. And I think that's where a lot of people lose it. Sam, you're dealing with a lot of international professionals where, you know, cultures are different. So the way they talk might be different. And I'm not talking about the language barrier, but like their culture of how they some cultures are a little bit more blunt, some are a little bit more shy. How do you deal, like if you're a shy person from a country and you're trying to apply to a North American job and you're having a tough time grasping the culture? What's some advice you could give to somebody that you've seen work with maybe some of your candidates?
Yeah, I mean, the culture difference is a big thing, right? So you're quite right. So if you're an organization in the Middle East and you are in a totally different, you're not open to that culture, how would you go about that? I think it comes down to the research you've done, but you won't be doing enough research if you don't have passion and enthusiasm, right? And I think this is also ties within who are the type of candidates that actually will get land these few jobs that are available, right? Especially in the compliance side, if you look at junior, mid-level jobs, there are lots of candidates out there, not just in Europe, but also in the Middle East, and many big organizations have let people go. So there are lots of candidates. So I feel that the best way that you ever going to be successful, whether it's to do with learning the culture of an organization or the way they work, is you have to, first of all, you need to have really a big passion and enthusiasm, and then also underpin that by research, fact finding, and so you can actually, you know, in a way that you can put that into practice. So that's what I would say is the main thing: research.
Thanks so much, Sam. Thank you, Rima, for putting in, you know, some intercultural communications on LinkedIn, because I think that's important. A lot of people want these remote jobs. I remember my first job at Bitfinex, speaking to a Dutch person, and they were very blunt. And I was like, yo, this guy's ready to fight. And he's just like, no, they're just being completely honest. And a lot can get lost in translation on places like Slack. Yanni, I want to go back to you because they mentioned a little bit about culture and questions. What I see a lot of is people, when they apply to jobs, they start talking about all the things that they're lacking. You know, I don't have crypto experience. I don't have this certification. I never really did much in crypto. Is that crushing? Like, I see that. Do you see that as much, where people aren't leading with their strengths, but they have no problem identifying maybe some of their weaknesses without anyone even asking them about those weaknesses?
Yeah, I think a lot of people default to that, right? You want to be honest in an interview. You feel like you're put on the spot, so you want to be forthcoming. You also don't want to jump into a role saying that you can do everything and then maybe underdeliver. So I can totally understand why some people do go to that side of conversation. But I agree. I think before an interview, you know, really making sure you're in the right headspace, you know your background better than anybody else, you are able to communicate transferable skills. And I think that's kind of the key there is, you know, you may not have crypto, but you started your career in the public sector and you understand how big organizations work and the complexities that can bring. So you're not framing as, I just don't have this. You're saying, I can learn this because, and I think those are great ways to frame those honest comments that you should have with the recruiter and with the hiring team, so that they know where you start, but doesn't shoot yourself in the foot with saying that you don't have any of the prerequisites.
I want to go to the other panelists. Before we do, though, you've mentioned, and everyone's mentioned, transferable skills. This is one of the hardest things I think most professionals that are struggling in their job search have a challenge doing. They don't know what are transferable skills. Maybe you can give us a couple transferable skills. Maybe everyone on the panel can start thinking about, because I'm going to come to everyone. What is one transferable skill that you see that people maybe not even realize was a transferable skill that you think that has been extremely helpful in their progression in crypto or even just compliance?
The first one for me that comes to mind is an ability to work well in ambiguity. We've all seen a ton of change and volatility, and internal changes. And if you can communicate that you're comfortable with that you can remain level-headed through that you've been through something similar, is a big plus, and something that people probably don't think to emphasize.
I love that. Zach, what are some of those transferable skills that people don't even realize they have, but after you're talking to them, you're like, you should start mentioning this in the interview?
Well, it's something that you can also, the one that I say is passion. And I think a transferable skill specifically within passion is, it doesn't matter what type of job you're doing, especially if you're passionate about it. And I was actually going to add that onto what Yanni said in relation to, putting your best foot forward. Instead of talking negative in an interview, talk about what you do have. Every single company that I've ever worked with in my career wants someone who's passionate about their job. Because if you're passionate about your job, there's less work or management needed to oversee someone. Especially crypto, especially startups. If you're passionate about crypto, it's going to come out naturally when you talk about it. And it's something that most people don't openly talk about, I think, because it's not something that most people are aware of. But passion and work ethic are the two most important, in my opinion, traits that a person can have when you're looking for a job. Because again, if you have someone who's passionate, that's less time that you're going to need to oversee them, but also they're going to proactively want to learn and proactively want to do things on their own. So a transferable skill for me would be passion, because regardless of whatever the person's in, I think that if they're passionate about it, it should be good.
I love that. That's an easy skill to work on, right? Just try to apply specifically for jobs that you would be passionate versus applying for everything. Neza in the chat said, she loves to frame it like, I can learn this because. I think in crypto, one of the things that you have to get used to do is figuring out the answer on your own. I think where candidates are killing themselves with recruiters and connectors in this space is asking them basic questions when they could have done the research on their own. And I think that kills a lot of professionals right out the gate. Sam, what are your thoughts? What's one transferable skill that your candidates have that they might not even see because they just can't see it in them, where you see lots of candidates over a period of time?
Well, I think for me, it would be something along the lines of being able to articulate what your idea is. I think regardless whether you're a software engineer, compliance person, C-suite person, sometimes not everyone is born with being able to articulate things, right? Certainly I wasn't. But I think that's something would be really valuable regardless where you are in your career. And for me, that's that adding on to what Yanni and Zach said, I think one of the key things for me.
And I think in crypto, you're going to see that a lot. You're going to have to speak to regulators. You're going to have to speak to law enforcement. You're going to have to speak to your reporting managers. Yanni, let's get into the nuts and bolts. What are some of the deal breakers? Where are people absolutely crushing their interviews? Where are they getting killed in their interviews because they just don't know, but you see it over and over again that they're complete deal breakers? And maybe not for specifically for you or Chainalysis, but you're sitting there and it's like cringe city when you hear something come out of their mouth. What are some of those things?
I think it kind of goes back to what we've just been talking about. If somebody comes onto the call and has absolutely no clue why they're there, and this is the 15th role that they've applied to, and they just saw it come on their calendar and they're talking to you. I've had it, unfortunately, more times than not where, people have come on and be like, what role is this for again? Oh. Or, is this a marketing position? Oh, I thought I applied for this role. And you're like, okay, well, we're not going to get very far. You didn't do any research into this conversation. So that's a very easy one to prevent just by being prepared. But, outside of that, I think for myself, a recruiter interview is there to see you through the whole conversation and really hear all aspects. So for better or worse, people can usually talk themselves through any kind of cringy comment they might have made at the beginning. By the end, we've gotten to a conclusion and we can move forward from it. So outside of just not being prepared and thoroughly uninterested in the roles that you've applied for, most of everything else can be talked through with the recruiter.
Awesome. Thank you. Zach, what are some really stuff? Like, I think what I love about these sessions is you get to be completely honest because you're not hurting anyone's feelings because you're not giving direct feedback to a candidate. But give us some top 2 things that are less like they need to stop doing this now, or they're just really hurting themselves going forward in these processes.
So yes, come prepared with come prepared with research. Mine is come prepared with questions that are not, what does a typical day look like? Because in an ideal job, no day is the same, you know, and everyone's dealing with different things. Come prepared with questions that are actually invigorating and exciting for the hiring manager to answer. Again, ask questions that are not yes, no questions or open-ended questions, such as, where do you see this group going? You know, what is the vision that you have for this group, or, you know, things about the product, things about current events. But I don't really like anyone asking yes, no questions, because the conversation dies there. You don't create a continuous dialogue.
Awesome. And Sam, last point on this, what's a deal breaker for you when you're speaking to somebody on the phone as a recruiter or a headhunter?
I would say these are I'm not quite sure if the ones that I'm thinking about are you know, proper deal breakers, but for me, given that lots of things what we are doing from an interview point of view, we're doing on Zoom calls, Google, right? Sometimes how you dress really matters, I feel, right? And sometimes I speak to now. Sometimes I spoke to a few times some candidates, they're smoking a cigar, right? And I'm like, I'm not so sure whether how to take it, right? Is it their vibe, or is it they don't care? You know, that's strange. And actually, I spoke to a client as well. That's strange enough. And so I feel that kind of thing might not be the right way to go forward. So yeah, I feel that either overdressing or underdressing is, I still find it's important, especially if you're going to do a in-person meeting with a client, right? I think this is more valuable in terms of if you're working, if you're a hedge fund or something like a big organization, they still care about how you dress and how you present. And the other thing I feel is lighting and stuff like that. Apologies, I don't have the best lighting here. but I feel like, you know, you have to because you have to present the best of yourself, right? So I feel that's one of the things. And then sometimes, time to time, I come across candidates who are really arrogant. Sorry to say this, right? Some candidates are, unfortunately, you know, they think they know everything, which is not the case. And I immediately stop working with that sort of. So yeah, that's what I would say. Some of the things that and yeah, just be humble, right? Everyone wants to work with nice people, nice, friendly, humble people, regardless who you are, whether you are a CEO earning 1 million or a junior candidate earning, you know, I don't know, 30K or whatever. You have to have some humility, be friendly, and that's what everyone wants.
That's a great point. And I've heard, you know, and Yanni, we'll go to you next, but I've heard a lot of people ruining their interviews. I was even in an interview where someone's like, yeah, I could do this job, the job I'm applying for with you, and the other job I have right now. And like immediately the Slack went off like, nope. We'll move forward. Yanni, we have a couple more minutes before we're going to go to the chat. Everyone, please put your questions in the chat. We have a good one from Rima, but please put your questions in the chat. We are stopping right at 1 p.m. Eastern time today. So get your questions in and we'll be answering them. Yanni, to you, what are your thoughts on the arrogance piece, or, you know, the lighting? And because I think perception is still huge. I actually want to ask you this. Instead of that question, I want to go to you and ask you about you and Zach kind of mentioned easy to deal with, easy to work with. There's some people like me who I think is high maintenance, right? I have a lot of opinions, a lot of vision. I'm not the person that most banks want to hire, most crypto firms would want to hire, unless it's through content. So what's your thoughts on that? I always say, like I was joking around with Ann, I'm like, if you want a better version of me that's low maintenance, Ann is the content creator to go with. What are your thoughts about having low maintenance people? Is that what's in demand right now? Just someone that fits the culture of the team and is low maintenance. Not to say they'll say yes to everything, but they're just easy to work with, easy to deal with, and they make the process run smoothly.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with what Sam says. You know, we all spend probably too much time at work, right? So we all want somebody sitting next to us who we actually enjoy talking to and we enjoy learning from, and we can ask questions to in a way where we don't feel judged by it. So that's definitely a key attribute that follows a candidate through the entire interview process and is honestly tested at each stage of the interview process, because you'll be speaking with different personalities, you'll be speaking with different levels, and you're able to either show consistency in how you approach, how you communicate with others, or you can show faults in saying, okay, well, I respect people who are more senior than me, so I'm going to be more pleasant to them. But my recruitment coordinator who just scheduled my interview, I'm not going to be gracious to them at all because they don't matter in my interview process, right? When in actuality, those are all data points that we put together when we're faced with a tough decision of who to put into a role.
That's such a good point. I think you got some people on your team. I don't know if Judy's part of your team. I see Molly there. I feel like Molly's part of the Chainalysis crew. So I love that you have your people coming to support you. Last point before we go on to the questions in the chat. Yanni, LinkedIn, how important is it? How much are you looking at? Is that the first thing you do? What do you look on more, the LinkedIn profile or the resume? I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on LinkedIn overall.
Love LinkedIn. I think it's a great tool. Everybody should have a platform to showcase their experience, and it gives you a lot more flexibility than a resume does. To Zach's point earlier, it's not just a piece of paper. It's all of a sudden a summary and interests, and people have recommended you for certain things. So there's more credibility towards certain attributes that you can't show purely on a resume. So whether I'm directly reaching out to people on LinkedIn or I'm reviewing applicants that come in, I'm constantly referencing their LinkedIn alongside it just to see, what matches up, what is emphasized on a LinkedIn profile versus a resume, et cetera. So it's a huge tool for people looking for new roles and looking for a new opportunity or new industry to get into.
Is that a killer for stuff that doesn't match up? Like they have all these things listed on their resume and you go to LinkedIn and there's like these 2 random jobs that aren't even on their resume. Is that a killer for you? Does that get you confused? Or you're just like, I'm going to move on to the clients that have or the candidates that have their stuff together?
It is a bit of a flag, to be honest, if there's like inconsistencies with dates or degrees aren't shown properly on both one of them. But, there's still some level of flexibility. I understand that people either typically don't have such a huge focus on both. A lot of people start their career search and they're like, I'm going to get a resume together. It's going to be the best resume ever. And I'm going to send that out. And then maybe a secondary is to do their LinkedIn or vice versa. So you have to have some flexibility, but if there's huge inconsistencies, that's definitely a flag.
Awesome. Zach, you're on LinkedIn. You have your posts on LinkedIn. What are your thoughts about candidates on LinkedIn? Are you skimming their resume, then just double checking on LinkedIn? Are you looking at their LinkedIn activity? What are they doing other than just their 9-to-5 job?
I do both. I don't, I hold the resume in much higher regard because that is who you are as a person. If you have a LinkedIn, but it's not up to date, I'm not going to hold that against you. But if dates don't match up, that is something, I do look at both. That is something that I'm going to bring up whenever I talk to the person. I'd say if you want to put yourself out there, LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool to put yourself out there because the most important thing a human being can do in getting a job is networking. The more people you talk to, the more you put yourself in a position to talk to more people. It can only put you in a better position to help yourself get a job. But I think there are a select few clients that I do have that will say, look, the person doesn't have a LinkedIn, which means they're not in tune with what's going on in the world. So that actually does cause a red flag for some people. So I don't hold it in as high regard, but I know some of my clients do.
Awesome. I think that's important to know. People got to step up their LinkedIn game just in case, right? You might as well be appealing to all of Zach's clients, even if only a small percentage of them are actively looking. We are going to go to the chat for questions now. Sam, I'm going to go to you. Marlon, who's an awesome content creator and creator of the AML Pirate series, she asks, what can a newcomer to the crypto industry bring to the table that will make them be considered over an experienced candidate? I think that's a hard one for those that are trying to come into the space now. How can they leapfrog the tons of candidates that are, lost their jobs but have a ton of experience now in the industry?
I think it's about what you already have created in your career, right? Before you like for Web2, right? So going back to the earlier comment I made. It's about what you have already created and how, and you know that there is something special, and then you can combine that with, you know, crypto certifications, or in compliance, for example, right? You can have certifications and things like that, or you might be really up to date with what's happening in the market, and you can comment on those, right? So I think it's about leveraging what you already have, and then trying to understand what are the other certification or even connections, right, on LinkedIn and wherever it is. So I feel that might be the best way to, the starting point, certainly. And then, you know, obviously you can I also feel like, going back to what you guys were talking previously about LinkedIn, I think you can use that as a tool in a way to be able to land a great job in Web3, because that allows you to showcase your experience, skills, the way you come across, and all sort of stuff, right? So I feel those are the three touch point, I would say: what you have done, and then what you can get from Web3, and then maybe using some sort of a platform to be able to showcase your ideas and stuff like that. That would actually help you a lot.
That's awesome. And it's easier if you're new to the field, especially if you have a job in traditional, to build long-term connections, right? A lot of people, if they just lost their job, they're going to be desperate. Let's face it, right? They're looking for another job. They're not going to connect the same way that you can connect with them if you're just like trying to explore and research and get more information from them. Other people are just sending them resumes looking for jobs. Yanni, I think this one would be good for you. Do you recommend attending conferences? Which conferences do you attend? Are great to attend to make new connections in person? I plugged you because the Chainalysis Links conference is an amazing conference, and filled with people that have enough money to sponsor conferences. So those are probably thriving organizations within your great partnership teams. Can you talk about what other conferences that you have your eye on?
Yeah, so definitely my mind goes to the Links conference, but there's a lot of also, I think, more accessible conferences or networking events that are just meetups, right? Really getting into the know of what your immediate community is doing, because that's also a way to build more genuine relationships with people versus maybe feeling, you know, a little bit of imposter syndrome going to a giant Links events and trying to walk up to Jonathan Levin, our co-founder, and pitching yourself, right? Versus going to a local meetup where it's people who are really passionate about compliance or crypto or Web3, and naturally building those relationships that can get you to someone like Jonathan Levin or whoever you might want to meet. And that, I think, also piggybacks on the importance of LinkedIn, something that does let candidates shine through kind of the application process, is if they've done their own networking, right? They've reached out to people that they know are in the team that they want to be, and have asked those people about their roles, what they enjoy about it, you know, and eventually maybe that turns into a recommendation even for the person to an open role that we have.
I love it. And there's just great people in those conferences and presence. Zach, people are asking about, you know, a lot of the jobs. And the reason why I asked you is because you're North American based, you focus on North America. People are like, what's up with the remote jobs? How come all your companies and clients aren't hiring abroad? Or do they have any, why wouldn't they want to hire abroad to get a wealth of experience at probably a lot cheaper cost than they would be hiring in the US? Can you maybe talk to that just from some of the things or trends that you see?
Well, my clients themselves, it's not that they don't hire abroad. It's just that's the area that I focus in. If they're looking to hire abroad, I usually move them over to somebody else in my company who deals with that. But in North America specifically, a lot of companies itself are pushing toward a hybrid model. And that's because remote, you lose a lot of that collaboration. And look, I myself am in a hybrid model. I'm in the office today, but I only come in 1 or 2 times a week. But a lot of companies, they feel that they've lost a lot of collaboration. They've lost a lot of the ability to move up. If you're 100% remote, you don't know how to get a promotion anymore. You don't know how to work within a group setting. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I think of the 90-ish jobs that I'm currently working, I only have 1 job that is looking for 100% remote. And unfortunately, it's not in the crypto space. So it's something where a lot of people are pushing toward that hybrid or remote, but we want you in the area so that they can eventually get you back to the area. And it's just been a challenge because a lot of people got very comfortable working remote.
Yeah. And I think people thought that's kind of like the norm, especially in crypto, because there's a lot of remote first companies in crypto. There's a ton of challenges working remote that I think people don't take an account for. Trust me, someone that's worked completely remote organizations, it's really tough to communicate or feel bonded to your team. Sam, people are definitely wondering all the questions here about remote. You're the international global headhunter here. What are your thoughts? Like, how can people in the Caribbean, people working in Africa, how can they find positions? Because they don't need as much as like maybe a US candidate with the same or equal experience or certifications. So where do they go look for these jobs? Where would your suggestions be? Or are they coming through you?
I think for us, I think it's slightly different to SAC maybe, because most of the startups that we work with, well, we used to work with a lot. Unfortunately, with the crash, there's not so many, but we still hire quite a lot of remote staff, and especially at the dev level, that seems to be the case most of the time. And yes, there is a little bit of a trend that happening, and I think it'll be some sort of the norm. That hybrid model, right? That happen, and I feel that maybe more for us, maybe more established organizations seems to be looking at hybrid or either in some cases full-time office work. But there are lots of startups still hiring fully remote candidates. So we work with in New York, and they're happy to hire candidates in Europe. So it's a real mix, I think. So yeah, so and also for you know, since you mentioned Caribbean for candidates out there, right? I feel there are lots of, given the market right now, there are lots of part-time gigs happening as well. So, but depending on, you know, what's your skill, right? There are lots of part-time gigs happening, and in fact, if you put all those part-time gigs together, you end up having more income and perhaps a better job than a full-time job, right? So that's another thing that candidates missing out sometimes. Sometimes people think, oh, you know, I'm gonna give this client is maybe a part-time, short-term gig. It's only gonna be 2 days, but they actually don't think, well, what I'm gonna do with the next 5 days of, or if some people want to take weekend off. So let's say 3 more days, right? So so there are lots of opportunities like that, especially smaller startups that would do that. We don't really work with such, because, you know, obviously they come to us because they want a specialist skill or you know, something that the internal team cannot find, right? So that's not necessary for us to do that. And then, you know, we it doesn't work out for both parties. But there are tons of online jobs that board you can go to. But one thing I would say though, some of these jobs you need to really figure it out whether they're actually hiring or they're just pretending to hire, because there are lots of stories that company says, oh, we are hiring, but actually they go through many hoops of interview rounds and then nothing happens. So need to be careful of that. But apart from that, I think that's something candidates in, you know, other places, Caribbean or Asia, can do as well, part-time gigs.
I think that's very important. I think what people also have to do is, like, they have to bring down their compensation expectations, because, you know, like, nobody cares that you worked at Coinbase or one of the big exchanges and lost your job, to be quite honest. You might not get the same pay. And I think people are just like, well, this is how much I used to make, so this is where I'm stuck. And I think that crushes a lot of people's opportunities to get that crypto experience, while not that many people are getting that crypto experience. Yanni, last words, anything that you want to leave these amazing professionals that took their lunch hour to spend with us with?
No, a huge thank you. Yeah, it was great to chat today. I think my LinkedIn was shared in the chat as well. So if anybody wants to reach out, I'm happy to help one-on-one as well. And always plugging Chainalysis careers, right? There's lots of opportunities outside of investigators, as Stephen mentioned, trainers, as well as marketing, sales, etc. So have a look, and thanks again for having me.
I think people should actually take you up on that opportunity. I think people say that and they're like, oh no, they don't really want, Yanni doesn't really want me reaching out to her, when it's like, no, like, craft something special, go look at Yanni's background, craft a special message, and then send that to Yanni. Because I think people just like, oh, like, everyone says that. And I think what you realize is not a lot of people actually reach out thoughtfully. Zach, last words?
I would also say, if you'd like, you can connect with me. I've talked to a bunch of people who are on this already. but I'm more than willing to talk about a couple different things in relation to market intel. Something to be aware of right now more than ever before, we have a lot of interim or temporary or contract related jobs, to what Sam was saying. In this, we're not in a recession here in the US, but we're in what some would say call an economic downturn. I think that's the fun word to say. Most people right now are looking to save money in some capacity, and hiring people in a temp position is something that a lot of companies are considering. It's not a long-term solution, it's a band-aid, but it is something where, people will hire someone for a 6-month gig as opposed to hiring somebody full-time. You might not make, say, benefits, but you are eligible to make overtime, which is time and a half. And that's why from a contractor perspective, you can always or potentially make more money than a full-time job in that sense, to jump onto what Sam was saying. And if anybody wants to reach out to me and talk about it, by all means, please reach out via LinkedIn.
Your LinkedIn's in the chat, and I think you made a good point. I think you don't eat eggs, otherwise you would know that we're definitely in some kind of recession with the cost of eggs going on. But I think, Zach, to your point, people got to roll up their sleeves. They got to get resourceful. And I think a lot of the questions can be answered in this chat of how do I use my traditional skills to crypto is you have to be resourceful. You have to stop asking the questions of what certificate should I take? What's that website you talked about? Already that singles you out from the majority of your comp. And you laugh, but these are the questions I see in the chat. These are the questions I get all the time. And I'm sure you get them too, where it's like, guys, we have to be resourceful. We have to do a lot of this research ourselves. And when you approach a Sam, when you approach a Yanni, when you approach a Zach, it's very specific. Hey, Zach, you mentioned this in the talk that you just did. I have a question about that. Based on my research, this is what I think. Can you share my thoughts? You've done all the hard work for Zach. Now Zach just has to answer your question instead of thinking about what your career path should be for the next 10 years based on the skills that you've acquired in the last couple of years. Sam, last thoughts?
Thanks so much for inviting me, and good to meet you everyone as well. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Sam Wellalage. There's only one Wellalage in LinkedIn, so you wouldn't miss. But I think one thing, if there's one thing to say, because I used to be a tech recruiter, mainly working in fintech area, and one thing in crypto is this most special thing is a community. And I see that a lot when I go to crypto events, how bullish we are, even regardless how the market is so bad. So I think if you're a candidate out there, want to do good and stuff like that, I think tap into community, go to these events and everything else, and make community is your pillar, because that will feed into many different things. So that's my leaving quote.
Awesome. And I just sent Anna a message to put her on the spot. Anna, you've done content consistently for like 8 months. You've probably seen more job opportunities just by doing your content. Leave these beautiful people with maybe a 1 minute, 2 minute thought, because now I'm going to be late for the podcast. 1-2 minute thought about how they can completely change their job searching habits and hunting with just creating content, because I think that's super easy for anyone to do.
So yes, I would like to tell people here that I was looking for a job for some time, I think for more than 6 months at the point before I started creating content, and I know how difficult it is, and it's a full-time job, and you don't get interviews or they don't reply. You just feel that the time you spend to make your CV, to apply, it's a full-time job, and it's very bad, the feeling. So when I changed my approach and I said, okay, instead of applying for jobs and get no reply, I'll start putting out content. I'll see what happens. If they like what I do, they can ask for something. And yes, I'm getting some job opportunities from companies also. The way you create your profile, you either, for example, now I have made it in a way to show that I have my own business and I'm interested in collaboration. But before, when I had it like my experience, I built it in a way to attract potential employers, and I had a lot of job offers just by creating content. So instead of chasing jobs, I made it this way so they can chase me, because they see what I can do. I don't have to prove you who I am. You see who I am. I'm proving through my content what I can do.
I love it. And it doesn't have to be boring. To Zach's point about his fun memes, it doesn't have to be boring. It could be anything you'd like, because you're always going to attract somebody, right? I'm sure the people that are attracted to Zach's memes, like me, like those are going to be people that you want to hire you. And if you have time, put your LinkedIn link in the chats as well, so people can connect with you. Marlon, who's also a content creator that's probably seen a lot of opportunities come her way as well. Feel free to put it on, and you will all get the recording after but usually about 48 hours after the session. I'll start sending you emails in the recording with the links. There will also be links to those jobs that I mentioned. If you're looking at the Ava Labs jobs, please reach out to me and I'll do my best to kind of highlight you. And if you're looking for the Chainalysis job, I think it's pretty easy to determine who you can talk to there, and figure out who else on Yanni's team was on this call that you can kind of reach out. Thank you so much to the panelists. I think you don't know how valuable it is to give this genuine, real conversations to people. And this is the feedback I've got from all of my sessions is, oh, I didn't know I was doing what everyone else was doing. I thought I was doing great, but I didn't realize everyone else is doing the same thing. And maybe recruiters don't like that. So treat people and recruiters as people, and I think you'll be better off and make their job easy. To be quite honest, it's super easy to create a Google form. And if Yanni's looking for hiring somebody, create a Google form, get people to jump in that Google form, create a spreadsheet, hand it off to Yanni. It just saved her hours of time of scrolling LinkedIn looking for people. And I'm sure the same would help Zach and Sam. So when they're posting jobs, don't just think about how you can get in front of them to get the job. Think about what would make their job easier and start doing that. And you'd be surprised, because your name's always at the top of that list on that job. And that spreadsheet you create for them will help. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll have something special for you on March the 8th. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you to the panelists. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
Everyone have an amazing day.